Myths of Work looks at a lot of different ideas and trends as well as myths and misconceptions in the workplace, but generally comes from the position that we want to make the workplace better, psychologically more healthy. We want to increase well-being, and increasing well-being is naturally going to increase productivity. People who are psychologically healthy, focused, in a good place are going to do better work, and it's good for the employer, it's good for the business, and it's good for the person. Now, not every trend that tries to increase well-being always does, and sometimes they have a bit more complexity. So one of the most interesting ones I think is mindfulness, because mindfulness has been a huge area of both research and trends and different practices and ideas about making people healthier or more effective or more productive. Now, there's all sorts of different ideas about what mindfulness is. Essentially, mindfulness is about detaching yourself a bit from your present situation and your emotions, taking a little pause, taking a bit of space, and having some mental space to kind of observe what's going on, but being a dispassionate observer instead of being an active participant. And sometimes doing that can give you a lot of space or insight, or sometimes even time to just let things go by, to disconnect yourself from, stress or intensity, or even sometimes disconnecting yourself from the positive things that are going on and becoming kind of an observer instead of an active participant. And doing that has all sorts of benefits. But it's not necessarily a silver bullet. It doesn't solve every single problem, and there are even some cases where mindfulness can be a bit counterproductive. So doing that, and sometimes that kind of space for self-reflection or pause, doesn't always bring the best things up either. And if you're in an incredibly destructive workplace, or you have some unresolved issues that are going to come up when your mind's a bit quiet, or there's all sorts of ways that, mindfulness can actually bring things up that are a bit negative. That's not to say they always will, that's not to say that's always a problem, that's not to say it shouldn't be done, but it's not necessarily always a good, psychologically healthy, automatic improvement of everything. It's not a magic patch, and if you've got serious dysfunction in your team, or maybe even your family or your workplace, mindfulness isn't necessarily going to solve it. It might even make you hyper aware of it. So mindfulness with a good practitioner, with a good coach, with someone who's experienced and can give you a bit of training and insight into that, especially if they've got some psychological education or background and can understand how to use that mindfulness effectively for mental health or well-being, can be really powerful, really useful, really helpful, and it can be a good exercise for many people. Now, it's not something that is automatically going to fix workplace problems, right? If you've got an incredibly dysfunctional, aggressive bullying culture in your workplace, a 20-minute mindfulness course or a little session or a little pause for mindfulness in the day isn't necessarily going to fix that. It's not necessarily going to give people the tools or the resources or the understanding to fix what's going on in the workplace. And if there's fundamental problems that are causing people extreme stress or anxiety, a 10-minute mindfulness course doesn't solve that. So that's not to say mindfulness is bad. There are a lot of great benefits to mindfulness, and there's a lot of research showing that practiced effectively, mindfulness can be really useful, but it's not always going to fix everything. And in the book, in Myths of Work, I talk about exactly what those conditions are and have a bit more advice about, using mindfulness effectively, but also knowing when it might not be effective.